The learnings of the Nishmas said Ahuva by Yaakov Maseches Kelim Perek Beis Mishnah Zayin Hatmeim shebekli cheres. The Rash points out that this is contrast to Mishnah Gimel where it said Hatahorin shebekli cheres, and we listed about 14 Kelim that are tar by kli cheres. Our Mishnah is Tmeim shebekli cheres, and the Rash says that that's the derech, like we find in Maseches Chulin Elu Treifus, and then it says Elu Ksheres. So these are the Tmeim. Is three cases: tavla sheyesh lelavazves, that a tray that does have rims around it, so therefore it does have a base kibbutz and it is mekabel tuma. Umachta shleima is a pan as opposed to machta prutza in that Mishnah. This does have rim around it, so it is mekabel. It is considered a kli kibbutz. And tavla shimaleya kairas, a plate that has inside of it many subplates, smaller plates within the bigger plate. So it's machlokes rishonim exactly how it looks, but it seems like from the rush that it was a kli b'soich kli. So it had one kli cheres, and around that was another kli cheres, and around that was another kli cheres. So in nitmas achas mehen b'sheretz le'nitmu kulam, that if one of them became tamei with a sheretz, they don't all become tamei. We know that a kli sheretz is mekabel tumo meiteichai. There's actually two pshatim in the Rash in this. So maybe let's first say the next line. The next line is, but im yesh lahem levazvez oidev nitmas echem nitma kulam. If the outermost kli, the rim around it, goes higher than the rims of the inner kelim, then if one becomes tamei, they all become tamei. So the first pshat in the Rash is that this is negeya the sugya and chulin of teichai v'loy teich teichai. Kli cheres is mekabel tumah me teichai, but not teich teichai. There's a Gemara that says, so if you have a kli b'seich kli and something goes within the outer kli, that which is with the inner kli is still going to become tar because teichai v'loy teich teich. Or it's really the opposite. If something went within the inner kli, then the outer kli is going to become tar. So according to that, we're handling, the Rash says, the uchan and a mashkin in the outer kli are going to become tar, even though a sheretz went within the inner kli. The other pshat in the Rash is that we're handling the kairos themselves. Do we say that they're separate kelim, or no, they're all attached, they're one keli? So over here, even though they're attached, they're considered separate kelim because of the separation between them. However, if the outermost kli, the rim goes above the whole thing, then we consider it all one big kli. The Mishnah says the same exact halacha by other cases. V'chein beis tavlin shel cheres. Think of like a dip that you get by a Shabbos Suda, that it's one big kli with three different compartments inside of it, that you could put different spices within each one. It's made out of cheres. Or kamaran hamatumamis is used by kalmar, is used lashon in Gemara in Shabbos, that's used by seifrim. So they would put, let's say, their ink inside one thing and feathers in another compartment. But again, it's one kli with a bunch of different compartments. And lastly, is a little bit different. The lastly is beis tavlin shel eitz. It's wooden. So now we're jumping from kli cheres to wood. So by kli cheres, the halacha is that it's metame meiteichai. So then we are handling, like we spoke about from the last Rash, whether it's considered one kli or whichever pshat in the Rash, but is it considered one big kli or not? Legabe tumas teicha. But over here, tavlin shel eitz. So over here, what's it negeya? If it touches it, so then the whole thing becomes tamei. It's one big kli. So the Rash speaks out, or really the Mishnah says, "Shenitma echa me mashke." We're talking about over here tumas mashkin. Tumas mashkin is only midarabana. Midaraisa, a mashke is not mitame kli, but midarabana the gzeir mishum mashke zav zava Gemara and Shabbos Yidal Amabeis. We say that there is tumas mashkin. Since the tumah is only derabanan as opposed to a tumah sheretz, again we would be mechalik that if it's different compartments, just because one became tamei is loy nitma chaverei. And at the end of the Mishnah is going to say over here also, that if the outermost walls go higher than the inner walls, so then it's one big kli, and then if one part becomes tamei, the rest of it becomes tamei. Before that, the Mishnah says, "Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer, Cholken is oivyav hamishamish l'tamei tamei, hamishamish l'tar tar," as opposed to the Tanakama that says that, let's say, the innermost kli becomes tamei, including its whole circumference of the rim around it. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says that we split it halfway, the thickness of the wall. So if the sheretz went inside one kli, up until halfway of the thickness of that wall become tameh, and the other half is tahar. The Rash seems to speak out that this may be only going on the tumas mashkin derabanan, because since it's only a tumah derabanan, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said, Raminim palga lahagisa b'shel tzad tahar tahar. Mishnah ches halapid tameh. A lapid, the Rash brings from the Aruch, is an avuka, is a torch, and he also brings interesting meaning that it was in the Arab countries that they would bring a kala mi beis avil, a beis baila at night before the chuppah, and they would bring these torches in front. So it was held, the way the torch was made is that this lapid, where the oil and the ner went, was stuck into a wooden pole. Similarly, so over here the chiddush is, we'll just say the chiddush over here, the Rash says the chiddush is that even though it doesn't lean on its own, still it's considered toichai, and it will become tameh if a sheretz goes inside of it. The next case, Beishikoy shel ner, is metame ba'aver. This is referring to a ner from the olden days that they would have the bottom of the ner, and then they would put the top of the ner which held the oil and the wick inside of it. So this bottom compartment was a compartment to hold the ner. So even though the Rash says the entire ner is not in totally inside of it, ki ma'at mimeno, it's still considered enough of a base kibo to consider it toich to be metame ba'aver. The last case of the Mishnah in the Perek is hamisarik shel tzirtzer. Tzirtzer is some sort of earthenware pitcher, and on the top of it was, the way the Rash explains it, was like a netting or some sort of thing that went around it that had holes inside of it. So Rabbi Eliezer mitahar, because it's not a real kibul, that area, because there are holes around the outside of it. The lashon of the Rambam is ein zeh toich kli cheres mnei makifay mufgam mikol tzad. What's surrounding it, this misarik, has holes inside of it, so therefore it can't be a kli kibul. However, the chachamim mitamim, because they say zehu toich shel zeh, this is the derech of this toich, and therefore it would be considered toich kli cheres to be mitame. Just lead one other line from the Rash on this, is that the misarik is like shinayim boltim, like teeth that are coming up, like a comb. It was actually made for the prettiness of the kli. And we're handling again the sheretz going inside of it, whether that's considered toich kli cheres, since its outer wall has holes in it, where it's mufkam.